I bought 40 pounds of chicken last Thursday for less than what most people spend on a single trip through a fast food drive-thru. Bone-in thighs, whole birds, 10-pound bags of leg quarters, all of it marked down because the sell-by date was 2 days out. The cashier gave me a look. I smiled, paid my $43, loaded the trunk, and drove straight home. By Sunday evening, I had over 60 meals packed flat in my freezer, labeled stacked, and ready to pull out on any night I did not feel like thinking about dinner. That is what I do every single time chicken goes on sale. I have been doing it for more than 30 years, and it has saved me more money than anything else I have ever done in a kitchen. Here is my complete system for turning one cheap chicken haul into meals for months. Most people buy chicken the way they buy everything else at the grocery store. They need it for Tuesday night, so they go on Tuesday, grab a pack of boneless, skinless breasts at whatever the sticker says, and they go home. It never occurs to them to ask whether Tuesday was the right day to buy chicken, or whether boneless breast was the right cut. And that is exactly how the grocery store wants it. Here is something the stores will never put on a sign. Chicken prices are not random. They cycle on a schedule. Every major chain in this country, Walmart, Kroger, Aldi, Publix, Food Lion, they all rotate their weekly loss leaders. One week, the front page of the circular is pork. The next week, it is ground beef. Every few weeks, it is chicken. When chicken is the loss leader, the store is selling it at cost or even below cost. They are losing money on every package they put out. They do not care because they know something about you. They know that once you walk in the door for that chicken, you are going to wander past the snack aisle, past the sodas, past the cheese display, and your cart is going to fill up with $30, $40, $50 of other things at full markup. The chicken is the bait. Everything else in your cart is where they make their profit. The entire business model depends on you never catching on to the pattern. My mother caught on before I was old enough to push the cart. She grew up in a house where every single penny had a name before it was spent, and she never in her life bought a piece of meat without checking the price first. She kept a little index card in her pocketbook with 4 numbers on it. Those were her buy prices. The highest price she would pay for chicken, ground beef, pork, and butter. If the store price was at her number or below, she bought as much as she could carry. If it was above, she did not even look at it. She walked right past and ate what was already at home. I remember standing in the A&P with her one Tuesday evening, and she picked up a whole chicken, looked at the price, set it back down, and said, "Not today." I asked her why. She said because they will need to sell these by Friday, and by Thursday the price will be lower. We went back Thursday. She was right. The price had dropped by 30 cents a pound. She bought 3. That lesson stuck with me harder than any class I ever sat through. The stores have a schedule. If you learn the schedule, you stop playing their game and start playing your own. I picked that up from her before I was 12 years old, and I have never stopped. My buy price for chicken right now, in the middle of 2026, is about $1.50 a pound for bone-in pieces and around 80 cents a pound for leg quarters in a bag. When I see those numbers in the circular, I go that day. I do not wait until I run out. I do not think about whether I need chicken this week. I buy and I deal with it when I get home. That one habit, buying on their schedule instead of yours, is the single biggest reason I spend a fraction of what most families pay for meat in a year. Now, here is where most people make their first mistake. They see cheap chicken, they get excited, and they grab boneless, skinless breasts because that is what they always buy. It is the most expensive cut on the shelf, even on sale, and it is the worst cut for freezer stockpiling. Boneless, skinless breast dries out faster in the freezer than any other part of the chicken. It reheats poorly. It has no bone to make broth with and no skin to give it flavor. It costs twice as much per pound as the cuts right next to it. If you are buying to stretch, leave the breast alone and let someone else pay the premium. Here is what I reach for, in order. Whole chickens. A whole bird is almost always the cheapest per pound, and it gives you everything. Breast meat, thigh meat, drumsticks, wings, and the carcass for broth. One bird turns into 5 or 6 different things before you throw anything away. When whole chickens drop below $1.20 a pound, I buy 6 to 8 of them. Bone-in, skin-on thighs. This is my favorite cut in the entire store. Thighs are more forgiving than breasts. They freeze well, they reheat well, they hold their moisture inside casseroles and soups, and the fat under the skin keeps them tender no matter what you do to them. On a good sale week, I find them under $1 a pound. Leg quarters. A lot of stores sell 10-pound bags of leg quarters for less than 80 cents a pound. At that price, you are getting dark meat, which is the most flavorful part of the bird, for almost nothing. The back of the leg quarter also gives you bones for broth. It is the most overlooked deal in the meat department. On my last big buy, I came home with about 42 pounds of chicken total, 8 whole birds and 2 bags of leg quarters. My total at the register was $43 and a handful of cents. That is a lot of chicken for the price of a restaurant dinner. Before I go any further, for the folks who want more of these kinds of tricks gathered together in one place, I put together something called Grandma's Grocery Playbook. It is a collection of the tricks that actually hold up in a real kitchen on a real budget. You can find it on my website, frugalfrannie.com. That is all I will say about it. If it is something you need, you know where to find it. Now let me show you what happens when all that chicken gets home. I call it kitchen day because that is all I do. I wake up on a Saturday morning, clear the counter, pull out my biggest pots and pans, and I do not leave the kitchen until every piece of chicken is cooked, cooled, pulled, bagged, and in the freezer. It takes me about 5 hours, start to finish. It is real work. But it is one afternoon that pays for itself for the next 2 to 3 months. Here is how it goes, step by step. The whole chickens go first. I pull out the biggest stock pot I own, the one my mother gave me, and I fit 2 birds in at a time. I cover them with cold water. Add a quartered yellow onion, 2 or 3 stalks of celery with the leaves still on, a tablespoon of salt, and a few whole peppercorns. Then I bring the pot to a boil, turn it down to a bare simmer, and let it go for about an hour and a half. I start with cold water instead of dropping birds into a hot pot because a slow rise pulls more flavor into the liquid. That liquid is going to become broth later, and I do not want to waste a drop of flavor. When the meat starts pulling away from the bone on its own, the chickens come out onto a sheet pan to cool. The liquid stays in the pot. Do not pour it out. Do not move it. It has a job to do later. While the boiled birds are cooling, the thighs go into the oven. I line 2 big sheet pans with aluminum foil, lay the thighs out skin side up with a little space between them, and season with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and a shake of paprika. 400 degrees for about 45 minutes. The skin crisps up, the fat underneath renders out and bastes the meat while it cooks, and when they come out, they are deeply golden. I roast these instead of boiling them because a roasted thigh holds up better in the freezer. The caramelized surface protects the meat, and even weeks later it reheats into something that still tastes like real home cooking. The leg quarters get the same treatment as the whole chickens. Into the pot, simmered low, pulled when the meat falls off. Once everything is cool enough to handle, I sit at my kitchen table with two big mixing bowls and I start pulling. One bowl for shredded meat, the kind you want for soups and casseroles. The other for bigger pieces I can dice or slice later for pot pies and stir fry. I use my hands, not a fork, because your fingers can feel the cartilage and the little pockets of meat a fork will miss. Every single bone goes into a gallon freezer bag. The breast meat from the whole chickens goes into the shredded pile because it breaks apart into long, clean threads that work perfectly in soups and sandwiches. The dark meat from the leg quarters is so tender after simmering that it falls apart in your hands. So most of that goes straight into the shredded bowl, too. The thigh and leg meat from the boiled birds I sort as I go. Some pieces shred naturally, others stay in chunks better suited for dicing. I also save the drippings from the roasted thighs. There is a pool of rendered chicken fat in the bottom of those sheet pans, and it is liquid gold for cooking. I pour it through a fine strainer into a small jar, let it cool, and keep it in the refrigerator. A spoonful of that fat in a skillet is better than butter for sautéing vegetables or making a roux for gravy. By the time I am finished pulling, I have 2 heaping bowls of cooked chicken on my table. Roughly 22 to 24 pounds of meat from 42 pounds of raw chicken. The rest is bone, skin, cartilage, and water weight. That yield is normal. Anyone who claims more than 60% meat from bone in chicken is counting something they should not be. Here is the part that would make my mother get up from her chair and point her finger at you. Most people throw the bones away, just toss them in the garbage like they are nothing. Those bones are worth more per ounce than the meat was if you know what to do with them. Every bone from kitchen day, the carcasses, the thigh bones, the leg bones, the backs from the leg quarters, they all go right back into that same stock pot with the cooking liquid that has been sitting on the stove all afternoon. I add a good splash of plain white vinegar. The acid breaks down the connective tissue and pulls out the collagen, which is what gives real homemade broth that thick, almost jelly-like body when it cools. I throw in more celery, another onion cut in half, a few smashed garlic cloves, and I let the whole thing simmer as low as my burner will go for 5 to 6 hours. I do not boil it. A hard boil churns the fat into the liquid and turns it cloudy and greasy. A gentle simmer, just a few lazy bubbles rising to the surface, gives you clean golden broth. When it is done, I strain it through a colander lined with cheesecloth into a big bowl. Everything solid goes in the trash. The bowl goes into the refrigerator uncovered overnight. By morning, a thick cap of fat has solidified on top. I lift it off in one piece and toss it. What is sitting under that fat layer is real broth. Deep gold, smells like something your grandmother would have been proud of, and when you tip the bowl, it wobbles like gelatin. You cannot buy this at any grocery store for any price. The stuff in the box on the shelf is salty water with flavoring. This is what broth is supposed to be. I pour it into quart-size freezer bags, lay them flat on a sheet pan to freeze, and stand them up like books once solid. One cook day gives me 14 to 16 quarts. At the price stores charge for boxed broth, that stack of bags is easily worth $60 to $70. I made it from scraps that most people put in the garbage. I use it in places you might not expect. Every pot of rice gets cooked in broth instead of water. Oatmeal cooked in broth instead of water makes a savory breakfast that fills you up. Leftover mashed potatoes thinned with broth instead of milk taste richer. Once you have real broth in the freezer, you start seeing uses for it everywhere. This is where the whole thing either works or breaks down, and it comes down to how you pack. I have watched people put 4 hours of cooking into a beautiful batch of chicken, dump it all in one big container, shove it into the back corner of the freezer, and then never touch it again because they cannot get to it or they have to thaw the whole block to use a cupful. Here is my system. The shredded chicken goes into quart-size freezer bags, 2 cups per bag. 2 cups is roughly 1 meal's worth of protein for 2 people. I press the bag flat until the chicken fills it like a thin square, squeeze out as much air as I can, seal it, and write today's date on the front with a permanent marker. The diced chicken goes the same way. 2 cups, flat, sealed, dated. The roasted thighs go into gallon bags, 3 or 4 per bag, laid flat and dated. Every bag goes into the freezer, lying flat on a sheet pan until frozen solid. Once hard, I pull the pan out and stand the bags upright like file folders in a desk drawer. This is the trick that makes the whole system run. Bags standing upright use a fraction of the space that stacked containers take. You can read every date without moving anything, and you can pull one bag without disturbing the rest. I label everything simply: shred and the date, thigh and the date, broth and the date. Nothing fancy. When you open the freezer and see 12 bags standing in a row with dates you can read at a glance, you know exactly what you have and how old it is. There is no guessing, no sniffing, no mystery packages. My rule is first in, first out. New bags go to the back. Old bags stay at the front. Whatever is at the front gets used first. Nothing sits in my freezer longer than 3 months, though usually it is gone in 6 to 8 weeks. If your freezer is the small compartment at the top of your refrigerator, you can still do this on a smaller scale, maybe 1 or 2 chickens instead of 8. But if you have room, a standalone chest freezer is one of the best investments a frugal household can make. Mine has been running for over 20 years and has paid for itself more times than I can count. Here is where the payoff lands. People hear about 40 pounds of chicken and they picture eating boiled chicken breast every night for 8 weeks straight. When I tell them what actually comes out of my freezer, they stop talking. Here is what a typical month of dinners looks like in my kitchen, all of it built from 1 chicken haul and a handful of pantry staples that cost a few dollars total. From the shredded chicken alone, I get 6 or 7 completely different meals. Chicken and rice casserole with a can of cream of mushroom soup, some frozen peas, and a handful of cheese on top. Chicken tortilla soup with a can of diced tomatoes, a can of black beans, a squeeze of lime, and cumin. Chicken salad for lunches, mixed in a bowl with mayonnaise, diced celery, salt, and pepper, which takes about 3 minutes and makes a week of sandwiches. Chicken enchiladas wrapped in flour tortillas with canned red enchilada sauce. A big pot of chicken noodle soup with egg noodles, carrots, celery, and my own broth that puts any canned soup to shame. And white chicken chili with great northern beans, green chilies, and onion. Every one of those meals starts the same way. I pull a bag of shredded chicken from the freezer, set it in a bowl of warm water for 20 minutes, and it thaws flat and even. The diced chicken turns into something else entirely. Chicken pot pie with a store-bought frozen crust and a mix of carrots, peas, and celery in a broth-based gravy. Chicken stir-fry with whatever vegetables are on sale that week, served over rice cooked in my own broth. Chicken and dumplings with a simple drop biscuit dough floated on top of a simmering pot. Chicken pasta tossed with a jar of marinara sauce I grabbed on clearance for $1. I also make a simple chicken fried rice that my grandchildren ask for every time they come over. Diced chicken, day-old rice, a scrambled egg stirred through, soy sauce, and frozen peas. It takes 15 minutes and costs almost nothing. The roasted thighs are the quickest meal in the house. I reheat them in the oven at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes and serve them alongside a baked potato and a vegetable. Or I pull the meat off and toss it into quesadillas with cheese, or chop it over a big salad. When I have roasted thighs that have been in the freezer a couple of weeks, I pull the meat, mix it with barbecue sauce from a bottle, and pile it on hamburger buns. My youngest daughter calls those my lazy sandwiches, and she is not wrong, but everyone in the family eats too. And the broth runs underneath everything. Every pot of rice, every soup, every gravy, every sauce. When I add it up, one haul of 40 pounds of chicken turns into somewhere between 50 and 70 individual servings. Most of those plates cost me under $2. A good number cost under $1. The rice, the beans, the pasta, the canned tomatoes, those are the cheapest things in the store. The chicken was the expensive part, and I already took care of that. Let me put numbers on this because numbers are what made me a believer when my mother first showed me. My last haul, 8 whole chickens at 99 cents a pound and 2 10-pound bags of leg quarters at 79 cents a pound. Total weight on the receipt, 42 pounds. Total cost, $43. From that, I got roughly 23 pounds of cooked meat and 16 quarts of homemade broth. The onions, celery, vinegar, and seasonings I already keep stocked, so the added cost was under $2. Spread across 60 servings of protein, that comes out to about 75 cents per serving, less than a single can of tuna at most stores. Now think about how the conventional approach looks. A family that buys 2 pounds of boneless, skinless breast at regular price, about $4 a pound, twice a week, spends roughly $16 a week on chicken. Over a month, that is $64. Over 3 months, it is close to $200. They are buying less chicken than I bought, paying more per pound, getting no broth, and making a trip to the store every single week. I paid $43 one time, and I am covered for the same period. The difference is over $150 every 3 months. Do that 4 times a year, and the savings cover a car repair or a surprise medical bill. And here is the part the grocery industry would prefer you never sit down and calculate. Every time you walk into the store to buy chicken for tonight's dinner, you are also spending gas, spending time, and almost certainly spending money on other things you did not plan to buy. Fewer trips means less impulse spending, less gas, and more of your money staying in your own pocket where it belongs. And one more honest word, because I would rather be straight with you than have you come back disappointed. This system needs freezer space. If all you have is the small compartment on top of your refrigerator, you can do a version of this with 2 or 3 chickens instead of 8. It is still worth it. But you will not get 3 months of meals from that. Kitchen day takes time. Real time. 4 to 5 hours, and by the end of it, my kitchen looks like something you would rather not walk into. It is not a weeknight project. It is a Saturday with nothing else planned. Not every meal will taste exactly the same, reheated as it did fresh. Soups, casseroles, shredded chicken in any kind of sauce, those come out of the freezer nearly perfect. A plain roasted thigh loses a step when you microwave it. It is still good, but it is not crispy the way it was on day 1. Reheat those in the oven if that matters to you. There is also the matter of variety. If you eat the same protein every night for 2 months, even in different dishes, you might get tired of chicken by week 5. I break it up. I keep a small stash of ground beef or pork in the freezer for the nights when I cannot look at another piece of poultry, and I make at least 1 meatless meal a week with beans and rice. That keeps the system from feeling like a punishment. I am not going to pretend this is the only way to eat well for less. Plenty of people save money without ever doing a big batch cook. This is just the way that works for me. It is the way my mother did it and her mother before her. It fits my life. It might fit yours. Here is what I want you to do this week. Pull up your store's weekly ad. Check the app if you shop at Walmart. Look at the Wednesday flyer for Aldi. Kroger, Publix, Food Lion, they all post their deals online or in the mail. Find the meat page and look at the price on bone-in chicken. If it is at $1.50 a pound or below for thighs or whole birds, buy as much as your freezer can hold. Then set aside one afternoon this weekend. Clear the counter, put on some music, and do exactly what I just told you. Cook it all. Pull it all. Bag it flat. Label it with the date. Stack it in the freezer. If the price is too high this week, write your number on a piece of paper and stick it on the refrigerator door. Check again next week. The sale will come around. It always does. And do not worry about getting it perfect the first time. Your first kitchen day will be messy. You will forget to label a bag. You might run out of freezer bags halfway through and have to use a container you swore you would never use again. That is fine. The second time goes smoother. By the third time, you will wonder how you ever did it any other way. One good sale and one free afternoon. Everything I just told you fits inside those two things. One Saturday and 42 pounds of chicken. That is what stood between me and 3 months of dinners I did not have to plan, panic over, or pay full price for. No apps, no coupons, no membership cards. Just a number in my head, a big pot on the stove, and a stack of freezer bags. If you have been doing something like this your whole life, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments what your version of Kitchen Day looks like, what you cook, and how long you stretch it. And if someone you know is staring down their grocery bill right now, wondering how they are going to make it work, pass this along. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing, because next time I am going to show you what I do when pork shoulder drops below $1.50 a pound, and that system is just as good as this one. My mother always said a full freezer is worth more than a full savings account. She knew what she was talking about.